So here what you see is a typical supply chain network. This will be a problem in the, you have to keep on. So this is a particular you can say a typical supply chain network. There are three basic entities, and then a retailer and a consumer, which is not represented over here. So when we go from right to left to right, we say this is downstream, and when we move from consumer towards the supplier or second tier supplier, we say it is upstream. So there are some introductions which I have to do over here. Some basic terminology we'll try to understand. This is annoying. So supplier, manufacturer, distributor, and retailer. Now every entity, we call these as entities. We call all the entities of the supply chain are supplier, manufacturer, distributor, and retailer. And then there, before supplier, there could be second tier supplier. Now let me give you an example of all these. Now let's say we talk about laptop. Now the manufacturer of the laptop is, let's say, Dell. Okay, and its suppliers are the people who are going to give chipset, who are going to supply the plastics, who are going to supply the body, and people who are going to supply screens, the battery, and the charger. So these will all be the suppliers. So in all we can say they must be having 50 suppliers of different parts. Dell. So Dell is the manufacturer over here, and the upstream. If you go upstream, the suppliers are like these companies which are giving spare parts to Dell. Even before, what will be the second tier suppliers? Can you tell? So for, let's say, chipset. Okay. So for chipset, the supplier is Intel. Okay. Now, who will be the second tier supplier to Intel? Can you tell?
The raw materials to create chips, the suppliers.
Silicon,
Transistor.
transistors, silicon. I mean, all these things. So they'll be the second tier suppliers. Now we go ahead. At the manufacturer, it is Dell. After Dell, there are distributors. It was not the case earlier, where in the traditional form of Dell supply chain, there were no distributors or retailers. It was direct shipping. So we are not talking about that. We're talking about the new Dell, which is like manufacturing. Okay. So the distributors will be located around the world. They'll be now distributor. What is the role of the distributor? Here, the role of the distributor is to bring product closer to the customer in large volumes. Okay. And then what is the role of retailer? Anyone? What is the role of retailer?
Selling products.
Is to get the products at the doorstep of the doorstep or in the close proximity of the customer. So in a way, distributor and retailer, they differ from each other in terms of volume that they keep. They differ from each other in terms of the variety that they keep. Distributor is generally dedicated towards certain brand, and it has large storage capacity. It orders in larger quantity, while retailer does not order in large quantity, that much quantity as compared to the distributor. At times, distributor itself can be a retailer where the requirement of the retailer itself vanishes. So, can you give any example where distributor himself is a retailer? Yes, anyone? I
So
mean,
fruit
yeah,
sellers.
fruit sellers. Yeah, I mean, we can say that. Just provided that they are having large quantity in the mandis, in the local mandis. You see these fruit sellers.
Yes.
They are fruit sellers or the vegetable sellers. They are distributors as well as retailers. Okay, and anything else? What about these car showrooms? Do you have a retail shop for a car or a distributor for car? Yes. Anyone? Do we have? So you would say a car distributor or a car retailer?
Distributor.
Yeah. So for car, it's another example where distributor himself is a retailer. One another characteristic of retail is that you generally can walk in and purchase it, the things. Distributor also you can have, but when the distributor and retailer are both the same, then uh, see with the car you don't have that much quantity, but at the same time the value of the product is very high. Um so that's one of the differences between the distributor and the retailer. So at times the line of differentiation between the distributor and the retailer becomes very thin. And then of course you have the consumer. So this is a typical network in a supply chain where you have supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, and then you have second tier suppliers, and then retail ahead of retailer there is a consumer. Okay, now how have how has this distribution evolved over a period of time? Let's try to understand that. What we see today, I mean, of course, in developing country the situation is different. But let's go back to the Western world, where there was a significant change in the way the business was being done pre 1970s and post 1970s. We'll uh, analyze it in that sense. So pre 1970, they were protected domestic markets. Like Japan was not allowed to sell in USA. They were closed markets. We will manufacture our products. We can export, but we will not import for certain type of products because we want our industry to grow, and we don't want. See, if you're getting too late by 10 minutes, entering in a class after 10 minutes, I think I would not entertain that. So anyone who's joining now, I will not admit it. They can see the videos later. So protected domestic markets was a characteristic. So supply chains were limited. They were not complex. One of the reasons that they were not global in nature. Then the financial markets were regulated, highly regulated by the government, and the exchange rates. Now we see the dollar rates and all, the gold prices fluctuating, and the fuel prices fluctuating. It was not that case in before 1970s, for the simple reason the global connections were less and people were less interacting with each other internationally. So stable exchange rates. Another important characteristic of pre 1970 business was that the labor markets were also regulated. I mean, people were not moving outside country to get the jobs and all. They were working mostly in their own countries, and the governments were stable after Second World War, and with the order of United Nations, there was relatively stable governments, except that in some of the countries, it was largely stable, and the superpowers were there, USA and Russia, and everyone was worried about what would they would think. So in a way, self-discipline, or the countries were minding their own business. I'm talking about the situation where after Second World War. So there were two major economic power bases, Europe and North America. Um, Now we see a shift in power, especially after post-COVID. I mean, we are looking that the power is shifting to Asia, and then the complex organizational structures were there because uh, the information technology or the internet was not there. So a lot of paperwork used to be there, and then there used to be hierarchy in the organization, because of which the movement of the material was slow. Okay. Then after that, post 1970, how the business environment evolved. Can anyone throw some light on it? What changes? I mean, I have already told how it was earlier compared to that what happened after 1970. Let's take the case of India. Uh, when did India start its? When did India open up to the global market? Anyone?
1991.
Very good. So uh, liberalization, we can say, happened in India in 1991, which was still late, but it happened pretty early in other countries. We had to follow the suit. So the companies were becoming more specialized. I'll tell you the meaning of specialized. So let's say there is an eatery where do you know any eating outlet, or I mean any food supplier, or food supplier in the sense which only sells online food? Do you know anything about a supplier, a food provider which only sells online food? Anyone? Find it out. There is one. So they take only orders from Zomato or Swiggy. So what these people did, I'll not tell you the name. You can, I'll leave it onto you to find out, but I'll give you some characteristics of it. So they specialize in biryani. Okay, these people. What they thought was that there is a big market available where people are not willing to come to, or they can't come to get the food. So why to waste money on the capital on having a restaurant, then having a workforce for restaurant and all that, but do good advertising, and have influencers on social media. They can get hold of the youngsters. I have seen. I live near hostel only, so every night, since the students have come over here, so I can see outside Arbindo Hostel, from 7 o'clock to 9:30, or up to even late night. There are always Zomato and the Swiggy guys standing there outside the hostel. So they tapped this kind of customer base, you guys. So it is quite popular among you guys. Still, no idea what am I talking about? Okay, you may find out on. I'll give you some one day to find out if you can. So they tapped this market and
Eat Fit.
huh?
Eat Fit.
Eat. I think they वो बंद कर दिया उन्होंने. You're talking about that fit, eat fit something in that one, no?
Yes, sir. It's
Yes,
close
sir.
to that.
वो तो बंद कर दिया उन्होंने. I mean that business is closed now. During pandemic, they
Only for Jaipur, sir. It's other place. It's open, maybe.
okay, other place. I had no idea. So Eat Fit is one business. Definitely, you can say that. So why do you think they did that? Why do you think that it is popular? Eat Fit. They have their own. I mean, they have tie-ups with Zomato and Swiggy, but at the same time, they supply on their own also. What is the advantage of that?
The sales are anyway happening via the online mode, and plus there is lesser investment.
Yeah.
So the brand or the supplier or the retailer can focus more on the packaging and the quality
Okay.
of the food.
Yeah. So they focused on their core business. So what is the meaning of core business? Is the specialized what they specialize in. They specialize in good food. Okay, we can say that. So good food, healthy food. So they specialize in that. And people, I mean, I also used to purchase a lot from Eat Fit a lot when it was there in Jaipur and then pandemic was not there. So they with this they can cut down on low. I mean, they can come to with a low cost and quality, and they can focus on the quality of the material because they are not supposed to spend money on other things. Okay, they are not spending money on other things, and they can have better sources of supply just by concentrating your energy. It's just like a human being. If you do too many things one at a time, and on the contrary, if you do only one thing at a time and you focus whole energy on that, you will definitely do better in that one task which you are doing, rather than 10 different tasks which you are just giving some portion of your energy. So the same thing is applicable to business as well. So business started getting specialized. So many specialization. I mean, okay. Now, what other specialized business do you see around you? Can you give some more examples of specialized business?
So we can take example of McDonald's. Like when it came to India, it actually like all the patties used to be meat based earlier
Yeah.
around the world. But
Hmm.
when it actually came to India, it first time created aloo patties and veg patties so that
Yeah.
the market here, so as to create a market here.
Yeah. Very much. The fast food market was not there in India, and I think they came in 1996 or 97 in India. So they saw a huge opportunity, and they focus on, like, we have pizzas, Pizza Hut. So they are focusing on pizzas, Domino's and McDonald's, and you don't get burgers in. I don't know whether you get burgers in Pizza Hut or not, or Domino's. I think there is some crossover kind of spin-off from pizza is there, but then the core product remains the same. So these people have been doing good, and the specialization became popular. Then another thing which came was outsourcing. I mean, I'm talking about post 1970, because that led to the advent of, or the growth of, supply chain management. So uh, outsourcing can be done in many ways. One of the way of doing outsourcing is, see, I can produce 1,000 units in a day, but if I get 120 order, 1,000 or 1,200 orders in a day, 200 extra orders, so I can fulfill those extra 200 from the outside, from somewhere outside, purchase from outside and fulfill those orders. Generally, airlines do that. So let's say they generally overbook. Okay, they overbook their flights, expecting some cancellations or something like that. So they overbook the flights, and in case everyone turns up, then they will offer some discount to the people who are ready to go, at a later date, or they will offer some coupons or uh, some points which can be redeemed later. If you can take another flight, they'll adjust you in another airline or their own airline which is going at a later time. So again, that is outsourcing. Outsourcing also the milk dairy which you have. Okay, now does that dairy own the cows and the buffaloes? Do they own them? Do they have their own farms?
No, sir.
So what's basically done? The supply has been outsourced. Hmm? So they are not. It's not like they are having their own farm animals and they are taking the milk and then processing it. No, the I mean I'm talking about big dairies. Of course, smaller dairies are there which have their own farm animals, but they sell it at a very high price. So that is one type of outsourcing. Now, can you tell any other forms of outsourcing which you have seen in your day-to-day life?
Sir, if we talk about the model of the Meesho app,
Hmm.
like technically there are products there, but the sellers are resellers and the buyers are totally a third person. So like they're sort of outsourcing their products.
So bottom line is in outsourcing, there is an increased reliance on the purchase materials and outside processing. So if you are just labeling, then it is sort of outsourcing. If you are just labeling the products, then it is outsourcing. Now, the kind of shoes, I mean, the shoes which you generally wear, you have these companies like Nike, Reebok, and all, or the jeans for that matter. So, do you know who actually is making the shoes, and then especially Nike, Reebok, or Power, and all these people? Anyone? You heard name Lakhani? Have you heard the name Lakhani, which generally
Yes,
comes
sir.
with the,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
Yes, sir.
they are making slippers, mostly
Yes.
slippers.
Yes.
But actually, these people are making the shoes, and the designs are given by Nike, Reebok, and all. They have the manufacturing facility. So they are just putting the brand name, and the quality, of course, is quality, and they before outsourcing the production itself is outsourced by Nike and Reebok and all these guys. Okay, and then the second one is your jeans. Who makes your jeans? Levi's is there, let's say. So who's making that jeans in India or for the South Asian region? It's there in Bangladesh or in for India for in the Indian firm. You know the name of the Indian firm who makes these jeans? You heard about Arvind Mills? Have you heard about Arvind Mills? No, I'm surprised you have not heard. There was a initially where they started with Newport jeans. Do you know that? Have you heard about Newport jeans? Not heard about it. So let me just give you a brief of uh, just yeah. So let me show you the website of it. So you can see that they are very much developed now. So denim, the jeans that they are making, and they are not writing clearly here that they are supplying to whom, but they are these are the people who are making your cloth for the jeans, and they are in fact manufacturing for many of the brands. Okay, so this is one thing. Now, we're talking about supply chain network, and post 1970, what has happened is that these kind of networks have expanded a lot, because the terms like which we are talking about, outsourcing. So outsourcing is very popular, and you hardly find any supply chain where the outsourcing is not there, which was definitely not the case before 1970s. We call that as a vertical integration. If you are owning everything in the supply chain, the complete supply chain is owned by you, then it is vertical integration. And if you are owning a particular level, total, the complete level is owned by you, like all the suppliers are yours only, then it is horizontal integration. Okay, so let me give you example of horizontal and the vertical integration. um, Vertical integration means that from supplier till the retailer, everything including the fleet, the transportation fleet is also, it's a totally 100% vertically integrated supply chain. Do you know anyone who's having that kind of supply chain, vertically integrated supply chain? What about Reliance? For certain products, let's say the farm produce or the agri supply chain of Reliance. So they are owning the raw material. I mean, they are not taking from distributors the vegetables and the fruits which you are purchasing from Reliance Fresh. They are not going to mandi and getting these. Okay, Reliance himself has either contracted the farms. I mean, they have taken the farms on the lease from the small farmers and these people, and then they are getting their own vegetables and the fruits from different places across India, and they are selling it in their own supermarket. They have got their own trucks. You must have seen these Reliance Fresh trucks. Have you seen that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in Indian conditions, it is by and large very much highly vertically integrated supply chain for Reliance Fresh. And then you have horizontal integration, where a level, like all the suppliers are yours only. Like you have Jindal Steel. Okay. So 80 to 90% of steel which we use in our day-to-day life is supplied by Jindal. Do you know that? Right now you're sitting on a table, probably one or two items, or maybe more than that, belongs to Jindal Steel. So that is called horizontal integration. Of course, they are not owning they are not owning the utensils company all over India, but then horizontal integration means that they are the basic suppliers. Okay. Similarly, logistics. So in logistics, we can see horizontal integration by uh, DTDC or FedEx. So these people, or you can Maersk, all these people are there. They are horizontally integrated because they are owning their own feet and across, and they are largely taken by the most of the business are taken by these large players. Okay, so that's what happened because of the outsourcing, the development of uh, horizontally integrated levels. We say horizontal integration in a level. So I'll repeat few things. Supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, they are the entities in supply chain. And if we go from supplier to consumer, we say we are going downstream. And if we are going in upstream, that means we are going from consumer to supplier. That is upstream. Okay, again coming back to 1970s, post 1970s, or today's word again. So there is increased national and international cooperation, and the competition both are there because of the opening of the markets. And we can see that always we are Modi ji has given some new funda that make in India. What is the difference between made in India and make in India? Anyone? What is the difference between the two? Anyone? Make in India and made in India. I'm
So,
surprised you don't know. Huh? Yeah. Can you tell what's the difference between make in India and made in India?
in made in India, we only resembles different items made in other country. We only resembles it.
I mean, it is not a compulsion. We may assemble it, we may make it all. I mean, it could be manufactured also, made in India. Okay, it is not saying that all the components are manufactured in India. Probably assembly could also be labeled as made in India. And make in India, yes.
So it is basically an initiative to actually manufacture and make everything in India
Hmm.
uh, only.
And it is not saying that you sell also in India only. It is not saying that. It is saying that simply to advance the manufacturing industry, they say even to outsiders it is applicable. You come here and make in India. Okay, you may or may not sell in India, but you make in India at least. Give jobs and use our resources. So I mean, countries are fighting for not only selling their own products, they are also fighting to provide facilities over the competitors. Then soon people also started realizing that okay, in this supply chain, what happens is uh, if manufacturer says I will just maximize my profit, I will not think about supplier or distributor or retailer. What will manufacturer try to do in this situation? Let's say everyone is selfish in this supply chain. Okay, they just, I mean, that is a human tendency also. So everyone is thinking about their own benefit. What will happen? Can anyone tell? What is the problem with that?
सिंक्रोनाइज नहीं होगा,
क्या नहीं होगा?
सिंक्रोनाइजेशन प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगी.
एग्जाम्पल दो.
So, like the manufacturer would try to over, like basically eat up one part of the chain. Maybe they'll try to, directly cut to the like get rid of the distributor and cut to the retailer so that they can earn more profits.
No, actually, distributor and retailer they exist because manufacturer needs them. It's not that the manufacturer, if manufacturer wants, and it can cut distributor and retailer. They exist because it is needed. In India, in a big country like India, where everyone is not well versed with the technology, or the availability is also not there, so you can't do direct shipping. We will talk about that. So I mean, you can't just cut down distributor and retailer whenever you want to, or if you, even if you wish to, you will not be able to do that. So I mean, that does not stand. But anyway, I can give you one simple example. See, manufacturer wants to make maximum profit. So how do you get maximum profit? By selling more and more. Okay, so he produces in large quantity and dumps it on distributor. Okay, and distributor wants to sell it to retailer, so retailer also fills its inventory. ठीक है, अब सबने अपना फुल कर लिया है। नो, अब क्या होता है कि आइदर बिकॉज ऑफ कंपटीशन वन प्रोडक्ट डज नॉट डू वेल। अब इन्होंने क्या अपनी डिमांड तो आपस में शेयर करी नहीं, दे डिड नॉट टॉक विद ईच अदर, सो it leads to, look, we will talk about it in detail. We are still in introductory phase. So what happens over a period of time, this large inventories at distributor, retailer or manufacturer or even supplier may do that for manufacturer. It leads to local optimization. Only one player might benefit from that, but other people will lose money on keeping large inventory. So this is one example simply I've given. There are many other examples we will talk about in this class, that how selfish plays by any one player in the supply chain could disrupt whole supply chain. We will talk about that. So people started, or the company started realizing that it is leading to local optimization and not good for everyone. So again, that change in 1970, after 1970s, people started sharing information. Why did they share information? What type of information they share? We will talk about that as well. So there is a gradual shift from regular mass production to more variety or customized production because of the advent in because of the uh, uh, better technology, manufacturing technology, better information technology. So mass production is shifted to customized production, and more variety of the products started coming in. So major trend we can outline is that globalization and increasing uncertainties. I mean, the uncertainty started increasing. See, in the mass production, one thing was sure that, okay, I am just giving one type of product is available in the market and only this product is going to sell. Now the customers were not empowered then. In today's world, customers are empowered. If you don't get what you want, you go to a different place and when you want. Product lines proliferated. So you see, product lines. What is the meaning of product line? Is that uh, you know this PepsiCo. What are how many types of chips do you know which are sold by PepsiCo? Can you just Google and tell me how many types of?
Doritos, Lay's, Kurkure, all of them are PepsiCo's only.
So why do you think that they have that many product lines? They just have to give you hydrogenated oil food. That's all. So why do they have so many product lines? So the larger variety you can offer, you will be able to capture larger market. And who's the competitor of PepsiCo? Any idea? Who is the competitor of PepsiCo? No idea. पेप्सी का वो कौन है कॉम्पिटिटर?
Coke.
And it is owned by which company? Coca-Cola company, right? So you
Yes.
can always find Coca-Cola company and PepsiCo introducing product lines, different product lines. If they introduce one type of chip, similar type of chip will be introduced by these people as well. So you will find that in the market. So we will talk more about it. So that's what it means by higher number of increase in the number of product lines. Then shorter product life cycles. So what do we mean by shorter product life cycles? Shorter product life cycle means that earlier when we were kids, if you have one car, probably you'll carry that car for 10, 15 or 20 years. But then now after every 7 to 8 or 9 years, you would like to change your car. And every 6 months, that car that you purchase, another model of that car is going to come. Similar thing is with the laptops. We are on the 11th generation of the laptops now. You know that? And after every 1.5 year, nowadays the new generation of laptop is coming in. Same thing is going with the mobile phones. Okay, so especially in the electronic or the consumer products, we see that product life cycles are really short. The increased level of outsourcing has been observed just for the simple reason that we want to specialize in what we do, what we are good at. Supply chain ownership is fragmented, which means that the vertical integration is abolished to a larger extent, and globalization is prevalent. So this is what introduction of supply chain we have gone through. Okay, now from next class we'll come to the point and we'll start the textbook which I've already shared with you, and we will talk more cases and more things related directly to supply chain management. Okay, so now I'll give you a quiz. So I'll be emailing to all of you, and also meanwhile you can mark your attendance. All of you can mark your attendance.
So the
Yeah.
quiz would be right now.
Yeah, quiz is happening right now, and it is starting at 10:18, and then it will go till it's a 7-minute quiz. So 10:25 it will close. So I'm just sending you the email. It has been sent, and by 10:25 I will close it.